enjoying the cat? Keep going, Michael. We got you. Just want to welcome those people still coming in. We have a couple more minutes. We're just enjoying the music of Michael Boezi. Michael Boezi is a part of the band The Rockmores, and they have. I'm going to put up a couple links where you can find their music. Really, really great music. Keep going, Michael. Sorry to talk over you.
No, not at all.
So in the interest of everyone's time, once Michael's all set, I'm going to start us off. All right. Thank you, Michael. So we had some clapping, but not everybody could hear it, of course. One last time, I just wanted to let you all know what you just heard was the music of Michael Boezi. He is a member of the Rockmores, and you can find them at the rockmores.com or michaelboezi.com/music. Thank you, Michael. So I know people are still filing in, but I will be honest with you. I'm going to try to keep us on time as much as possible. We said we'd start at 8:30, and it's 8:30. So I want to welcome everybody here. My name is Jeremy Fischer. In 2017, with a whole bunch of friends and neighbors, I started an organization called Boston for All. And what we are is a group of people who are interested in making sure that we promote an inclusive nation. We have held a whole bunch of community events where we are trying to raise money for people who are in need. And at this point, we know that there are lots of us in need. We also are aware that there's so much going on, and what we really wanted to do is just be a part of the solution in one way that we can. So thank you so much for coming to our first ever Zoom event. We know that we all now live in the world of Zoom, so welcome to the world of Zoom and storytelling version. You will find at the start, let me just say, everyone here who's doing this is an amateur. We have some fantastic amateur storytellers. We would not have invited them if we didn't think they were great. They are wonderful and they are brave, but let's also point out they're amateurs just as we are in the tech world. So if something goes off a little bit, we're going to do the best we can to make it work as well as we can, but please bear with us if something happens. I do want to say a couple of thank yous. My first thank you is to Trace Gatzos, who has been so good to us throughout. And today they are being really, really great to us and helping us out by providing some lessons. You'll have 2 lessons along the way for some cocktails, which is just really, really fun. I want to point out that what we are doing tonight is we are supporting the Greg Hill Foundation's Restaurant Strong Fund. They have put together this great fund to help out restaurant workers who currently could really need could use a lot of help. So what we are doing is we are trying to offer some of that help. Any amount that you choose to give tonight, we know that everybody paid their $5 at the door. Thank you so much for that. Also, any additional amount that you choose to give will go directly to the Restaurant Strong Fund. We have already raised over $2,000. So thank you all for being so generous. It's really exciting. 100% of what you give is going to go to the Restaurant Strong Foundation. So the Restaurant Strong Fund. So whatever you give, it sounds great. I want to thank all of our storytellers, everyone involved. All of those people have been so good to us and are doing some great work. And I want to make a special thank you to my very good friend, Andrew Turco. Andrew Turco is the brains behind this operation. He came to me and said, hey, I think we should do this. And it was his idea, and we made it happen together. So this is our collaboration, and he is going to be your MC for the evening. I am going to be the person behind the curtain who's sometimes posting a chat. You'll see a chat pretty soon that shares our GoFundMe link. Feel free at any time to click on that and give a little bit more if you like what you hear. We'll also let you know that you can also Venmo to Boston for All, and that is just as easy. Whatever works for you, whatever you want to give. More importantly, enjoy the evening, and I bring you Andrew Turco. I'm going to spotlight him now, and there he is.
Thank you, Jeremy. We are so excited for the night we have ahead for you folks. We know people have been getting a little stir crazy. We know the toilet paper may be getting a little thin. We know that 50% of you tried to make bread within the last week and it didn't go well. That's fine. All right. Tonight is about getting away from all that. On behalf of all of our storytellers and our 2 fantastic bartenders, Nikki and TJ, welcome. I want to thank the fine people at Boston for All. We could not have put this event together without you. Tonight, we're going to follow a theme of unexpected kindness, because without that, I don't know how we'd make it through this. But I want you to keep in mind, this is kind of a blip in the radar. There's going to come a time where we're going to look back on this as that strange, strange time that we went to the grocery store and people fought over toilet paper, and people worried about stuff that a couple months down the road will seem very odd. But I want you to keep one thing in the front of your mind. Tonight, we're all together. I want you to raise a glass. I want you to think about the people that you're thankful for. And I want to raise some money for some people who are hurting tonight. We're going to keep the night going. If you want to tip your bartender, pay for your tab, pay for your drinks or food, we're going to have the information for the Boston for All's Venmo up here if you want to pay through that, or you want to use the GoFundMe page. We're going to keep the night rolling. So cheers to the people for Boston for All. Cheers to the people that are telling stories tonight and the bartenders. And cheers to all of you. Our first storyteller, excuse me for a second, we're gonna have some technical issues throughout the evening, and I think you're really gonna like it. Our first storyteller tonight is Sonny Pye. He's an educator with the Boston Public Schools. He's been an educator for 20 years, and we invited him, even though he describes himself as a rabid Yankees fan. Sonny has a wonderful wife, 2 wonderful children. One of them had a very interesting day, which Sonny may briefly share with you, but now I'm going to hand the floor over to Sonny.
All right, well, thanks very much, Andrew. Since you mentioned it, my 8-year-old took a trip to the ER today and got 5 stitches on the outside of his face and 1 on the inside. But luckily, I was over and done with, and we're all back safe at home now. So we're grateful. I'm glad to be here tonight, and Jeremy, appreciate you inviting me to. I was in my girlfriend's kitchen. We were cleaning up after dinner, It was 1997. I was a senior in college. And she was standing over by the dishwasher, or by the sink, rinsing the dishes off, and she'd hand them over to me, and I'd put them in the dishwasher. She passed me a coffee mug, and I took it, and as I put it in that top shelf, I burst out into tears. And she was pretty confused, but I had just had this vivid memory of my grandmother, who had passed away about a year before that. Now, my mother told me once that I was the favorite out of my grandmother's 3 grandchildren. My sister's here tonight, so even if you didn't know that, I'm sorry. But
Hey, Sonny.
Yep.
I'm sorry to do this. We are having our first technical difficulty. I thought I should have you spotlighted.
Yep.
Being Turco, I want to fix it before you go any further.
Okay.
People, I'm sorry about that. We're going to fix that right now. Tell me if, all right, did people see Sonny?
Oh, Michael's giving you a thumbs up. Yeah.
All right, we see Sonny. Sonny,
All right.
I apologize for that. I'm just trying to deal with what we can.
No worries.
Keep going.
All right. So anyway, I was telling you, much to my sister's dismay, that I am indeed my grandmother's favorite grandchild. I called her Harmony, which means grandmother in Korean. And I think the reason why we were so close was we spent a lot of time together, most out of all those 3 grandchildren. See, she split her a year when I was real young between our house in Connecticut and my aunt's house in Holland. And that meant every 6 months we'd make this pilgrimage down to JFK Airport in New York, and we'd either pick her up or drop her off. And I got real familiar as a kid with that international arrivals terminal. You'd stand behind those little roped off area, and there'd be these sliding doors that would open up and forge people from customs. And I remember I'd wiggle up to the front of the crowd, and I'd stand behind that rope and be up on my toes and wait for the first glimpse of my Harmony coming along, lugging these huge suitcases. Now, picking up someone from the airport, especially a grandmother who didn't speak any English at that time, was different than it would be now with cell phones. And one time we were waiting there, and I'm watching those sliding doors, and she never came out. And we figured out that she had gotten on an earlier flight and was somewhere in the airport without us. So my mother even convinced the airport people to let her on the PA and let her call her in Korean in her voice, and that did not work. And my dad finally found her out on the curb, halfway into a cab, handing a wad of cash to the cabbie and pointing in her little battered address book at our address in Connecticut, 2 hours drive away. And that cabbie was not happy with my dad that day for losing that big fare. Now, you may be able to discern from that incident that my Harmony was someone who was pretty strong and independent. She knew how to really get things done. She was in many ways ahead of her time. Found out that as a young girl, she loved to play sports. And I'm sure in that culture and that time, it was not really the cool thing to do as a young girl. But all I knew at that age was that if I wanted to practice my pitching, I'd get into the driveway, she'd grab my dad's baseball glove, and she'd hitch up her dress like this, and she'd crouch down in our driveway, and she'd put the mitt out, and she'd encourage me to throw it as hard as I could at her. She was very much a creature of habit. She'd take these walks around our garden in our yard every single morning. She'd walk up and down the street in the afternoon for longer walks, and she'd put her hands behind her back, and she'd walk like this. My sister and I used to mimic her and make fun of the way she walked like that. And every morning she'd have her coffee in the exact same mug, this white mug with purple flowers. And every afternoon at 4 p.m., she'd be watching Guiding Light on TV. I don't know if everyone here is old enough to remember the soap opera Guiding Light, but it was her favorite. Didn't matter that she didn't understand a word that anyone said. She watched Guiding Light faithfully every single day. Now, even in these routines, her fire and her passion would peek out. We learned one day that our local Korean grocery store had started renting Korean soap operas on videotape. We picked up a couple because we thought it would be a nice treat for her. I remember the show was called Banji, which means a flower ring. We brought them home to her. We had to go right back to the store because my Harmony binge watched those two episodes in no time flat. I told you she was ahead of her time, binge watching 40 years ago. And we brought back a big cardboard box with about 25 videotapes in it that had the entire season. And it was a problem because she would not eat, she would not sleep, and she just sat up there watching those things. We eventually had to ration 2 tapes a day. And even that didn't slow her down much because she'd watch those 2 tapes over and over and over again. But I think she was just really happy to hear her own language coming out of that TV set for a change. Now that TV was in her bedroom, and I used to spend a lot of time in that room with her. We'd watch the Red Sox and the Celtics that were her 2 favorite teams. She taught me how to play a Korean card game called Hwatto. We'd sit on the floor and we'd play Hwatto all afternoon. And when my stomach hurt, I'd go in there and I'd lie down on her bed. She'd sit next to me and she'd take her kind of worn, leathery, soft grandma hand and she'd put it on my stomach. She'd rub my stomach like this and she'd sing, "Suk, suk, yo, kara," over and over, "Suk, suk, yo, kara," which basically meant like go down, willing the stomach to travel down out of my body. Now time passed and I became a teenager, and by that time, Harmony had stopped her traveling back and forth and she lived with us full time. And as I became a teenager, things changed a little bit. You know, she didn't always approve of my new teenage life. She was puzzled constantly why I ever had to talk on the phone to any friend. And in fact, she'd sometimes pick up the phone before me and she'd answer in Korean, and it would embarrass me to no end. Or she'd barge into my room while I was trying to have a private teenage conversation and loudly start saying in Korean, "Who is this person? Why are you talking to them? When are you going to get off the phone? Why do you have to do this?" And so as a teenager, we'd start to bicker a little bit. One evening, my parents were out, my sister was off at college, and it was just me and Harmony at home. And our bickering that night turned into arguing. I don't remember why. I'm sure it was some really ridiculous teenage thing I was going through, but we were arguing that night. We were really mad at each other. By the time we finished dinner, we weren't even talking. We were cleaning up the dishes and she was standing at the sink. She'd rinse them off and kind of grunt and hand them to me. And I'd take them from her and I'd slam them into the dishwasher. And she handed me a mug. I took it and I slammed it in that top shelf and the mug shattered. And I stood there and looked down at my hand and I was holding, the curved handle of the mug, and a little bit of it, and I saw was white with purple flower. That was the only mug she'd ever drink out of in the morning. I immediately froze. I felt so bad. I don't know if you know that feeling where you just wish you could turn back time for like a quick. And I was afraid because she was already mad at me. And I didn't know how much more mad she was about to get. And I stood there and she processed the whole thing in a second. She reached out that soft leathered hand and she just put it on my hand, still like halfway in the dishwasher. And she just said, "Intana, intana," which meant, "It's okay, it's okay." And then she told me to take a step back and that she'd clean up the glass without me getting hurt. All of that just came flooding back in an instant that day in 1997 in my girlfriend's kitchen. And I still think of her pretty often. When my son When I went to the ER today, he'll ask me at night, he'll say, "Can you do Suk Suk Nedogata?" Or he'll want me to crouch down and play catch. And even though my knees hurt sometimes in an embarrassing way, I'll still crouch down and play with him. And just this week, I went online and I found a set of those Paco cards. I'm going to teach my boys how to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. That was really great. Before we bring up our next storyteller, I wanted to give a shout out to one of my good friends. He is a local member of the Somerville City Council. Mr. Will Mbah is here tonight. I'm not sure if we can spotlight him, but I just wanted to thank Will for coming tonight. I know his schedule is pretty busy, so it's really important for us to have a member of the city council watching tonight and being a part of this. Hey, Will. Will and I have been good friends for a couple of years. Will works with me over at MIT. I don't know if Will wanted to say a couple words or if he's muted right now. I think Will, if you want to say something, I think.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I also really appreciate the organizers. I mean, every event that you put together is something that I really cherish because you're a good man. And the person who started this thing, just even the caption of it, a movement for an inclusive nation, in this time when, everybody is moved, by panic and all the craziness that is going on. And you have people that can come together and think about the other people that people don't think about them. It's really remarkable. So, I mean, this is something I wanted to be part of because I know that, it's about building a stronger community when we are together. So I'm really glad to be part of it. And I wish you guys the best of luck and let's rock and roll. Thank you, Andrew. You're a formidable friend and colleague.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you so much, Will.
Thank you.
So when I kind of came up with this idea, to have a night like this back about 2 weeks ago. We tried to do, that's when restaurants were really starting to close, and that's when people were really starting to use Zoom as a way to connect. And I reached out to a friend, Ian McGregor, who's a bartender at Highland Kitchen, which is my local. It's been the place that I've gone for a beverage many a times, and there's always been a stool there, and I couldn't thank Ian more. And I also that night saw my good friend Lacey Toback, who works over at Anchovies now in South Boston. But that night when we were trying to raise money for our friends at Highland Kitchen, I saw that Lacey had gone live on Facebook, and she was trying to give away all the food to all the people in the restaurant industry that were hurting, and they were losing their jobs. And so this night kind of came out of that. And Will was nice enough to put me in touch with some people in the Somerville government. And without people like Will, without people like Jeremy and all the great people at Boston for All, this night wouldn't have happened. So I really couldn't thank the both of you more. Our next storyteller he's a good friend of mine. I've been good friends with this guy for about 7 years now. Quick aside, I met Father Matt Westcott at a Halloween party back in 2012. And I'm a police officer. I'm a captain at the MIT police. And Father Matt Westcott at the time was the chaplain at Harvard, but he was also the chaplain of the Cambridge Police Department. And so he had a chaplain badge. And so some of his good friends over at the church at Harvard had invited him to this Halloween party, and we were the oldest guys there. So we were sitting out on the balcony of this apartment, which was upstairs from my apartment, and we had a little whiskey. We told some stories, and then a couple months later, the Boston bombing happened, and as many of you know, one of my good friends was killed. And I remember coming back to the police station that day in 2013 before going to the memorial, and it was just chaos. And Matt was there, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Matt in his collar, but I didn't recognize him. And someone said, "Why do you have that strange look on your face?" And I said, "I think I've gotten drunk with that priest before." And and since then, Matt and I have been really fast friends, and he's just been a great colleague, and he's a fantastic storyteller. He's the pastor at St. Mary's in Foxborough. He was a grad student for some time in the Boston area. He was a stand-up comedian for some time in the Boston area. And as a lot of people will tell you, there's a reason why he decided to have a career change. So as a priest, no one has ever said his homilies were funny, but they get a lot out of them. And Matt, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's a pleasure to be actually, and you were the only one that was drunk, Andy. Everyone else was fine. You made an ass of yourself. But it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you putting this together. As a guy that 95% of my time, if I'm in a restaurant, I'm at the bar, eating my dinner, having a couple of beers, talking to the bartenders. And this is a pleasure to be able to help that demographic. And speaking as a former barback and bouncer too, this hits home. This opportunity hits home. So thank you for having me. This is a great idea. This is a lot of fun. Thank you too to Sunny. Your story about your grandmother was beautiful. She sounds like a wonderful woman. My story is not that poignant. In fact, it's just downright silly. So let me tell you what happened to me. Sometimes acts of kindness are really more about what doesn't happen or what someone doesn't do. So, my story. When I was in the seminary, I was preparing to be ordained a priest, and it's a residential program. You live at the seminary, and it's a regular academic cycle. But the second semester of every year begins with a retreat, a week-long silent retreat. It's exactly what it sounds like. There's no classes, there's no events, there's just chapel time, prayer time, and reading. And silence. You're not talking in the hallways, you're not talking at meals. You're supposed to be alone with God. They're beautiful events, they're beautiful opportunities. The last year before I was ordained, we were on retreat, beginning on a Monday afternoon. Thursday night, I hear a knock at my door. It is my good friend, Dan Kennedy, my classmate, also preparing to get ordained. And he looks at me and he says, "Matt, grab your stuff, we're leaving." What are you talking about? We're on retreat, we're not going anywhere. Grab your stuff, we're getting out of here. I got 2 tickets to the BC hockey game. BC's right across the street from St. John's. We could walk. Geez, Dan, that's not the best idea. We're supposed to be a little bit more mature than this. We're supposed to be a little better put together than this. He's like, "Listen, it's BCBU." Now, if you know college hockey, that's a good game. So 15 minutes later, there I am at the hockey game with Dan. We're having a great time, enjoying ourselves. And we're enjoying the game very much. And we're so thick-headed, we don't realize that there's a lot of priests that went to BC. Maybe they went to the hockey game too. So we're sitting there. It's in between the second and third period. We're having a great time. We're just chatting. We don't notice that a man sits behind us during the intermission and just, he's just there, but we're not paying much attention to him. Finally, he leans forward, so his head is kind of in between both of ours. And he says, "Hello, boys. How's the retreat going?" I won't say his name, but this man was very highly placed in the seminary structure, let's just say. He had the ear of authority. He could have used this information very much against us. Dan and I kind of panicked a little bit, and we said, "Well, okay, we're just we'll have to be prepared to accept what's coming to us. So we stayed for the rest of the game, had a great time, and went back to the seminary. The next morning, I meet the rector of the seminary, the boss, the president. We make eye contact. I say, "Good morning, Father." I said, "Good morning, Matt. How are you?" I said, "Very good, thanks." I said, "Oh, Father, you haven't run into Father Jones in a while, have you?" "Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I was talking to him this morning. What makes you ask?" "Oh, well, I was just wondering. I've been meaning to say hello to him myself. My name didn't come up at all, did it?" "No, Matt, it didn't." "Okay. Thank you, Father." And off we went. That small act of kindness from the man that could have gotten me in quite a bit of trouble has always stayed with me. And something that gave me a lesson of remember what is your business and remember how to use your authority. In my line of work, my life, I'm privileged to see and even receive a lot of gestures of kindness and warmth. And something I say in a lot of homilies, I'll say to you folks too, and particularly to the organizers of this event. There is no such thing as an unimportant gesture of love. There's no such thing as an unimportant gesture of love, of kindness, of warmth, of generosity. It doesn't exist. They all matter. They matter significantly. So I hope you enjoyed my story. And again, I thank Andy for the opportunity of being here. And I wish the organizers and this endeavor the best of luck. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Father Matt. I just wanted to give people a quick update. So far, our original goal tonight was to raise $1,500, and right now we're at $2,220. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your generosity tonight. If you decided that the Venmo way of trying to donate is the easier way of doing it during the show, feel free to use that. Otherwise, the GoFundMe page is going to be running the entire time. So we'll give you updates throughout the show. But Matt, thank you for bringing up that great story. All of you telling these stories about all these different moments of kindness in your life. My wife and I just got back from our honeymoon in Argentina, and it's a strange time to go on a honeymoon, especially out of the country. And we would not be here tonight. We would not have made it back into this country or back to Boston without the kindness of so many different people. We were backpacking in Patagonia back in early March, and we came out of the woods and we saw that things were kind of getting a lot worse. And we contacted the embassy, and they said we should probably consider getting out of the country within the next few days. And within the next 24 hours, we found out that if we didn't get out of the country in the next few days, we would be stuck in Argentina for a month. And the kindness of the people at the embassy, who I'm sure were working overtime, people at my wife's company who saw her post on Facebook and just dropped what they were doing and went on the internet and helped us book tickets. And it's really amazing right now when you think of all the different things that people are doing right now to help you and to help other people to get everybody through this difficult time. So everybody who's doing a little more, everyone who's helping tonight, we really thank you. Next up, we have a quick drink demonstration. We have TJ from Tres Gatos. TJ is going to be showing us a tutorial of how to make the classic daiquiri. I don't know why they cut you. All right. We got you on mute, TJ. We'll see if we can get you off mute. This is an amateur organization. Fantastic.
Hi, everybody. Kathy, you have to turn your audio off. There's two people in the same room. We apologize. Okay. So a daiquiri, super easy drink, 4 ingredients. Any cocktail should have 4 ingredients. That would be a spirit, something sweet, something acidic. We got lime juice and limes, and water. And we're going to use ice for that. Catherine, could you get me some hot water from the spout? Thank you. The daiquiri was invented in the early 1900s by either an engineer or a U.S. congressman in Cuba. It's named after a beach and also an iron mine outside of the second largest city in Cuba, which I think is Santiago. Kathy, Cuba?
I don't know.
Anyway, the sugar we're going to use is simple syrup. You can make that first. That's just going to be equal parts sugar and hot water. That's equal enough. And we'll stir that. This cocktail is really great because if you don't like rum, you can add anything else to it and it'll still taste very good. And we're going to start with 1.5 ounces of rum. This is well-stocked rum from Ryan and Wood Distillery in Gloucester. They also make a pretty good rye. Next, we're going to do 1 ounce of lime juice, which, you know, we just squeezed with this really, really clean-looking tool. And then 1/2 ounce of sugar water that we made very quickly. You don't actually have to use simple syrup because if you're really lazy, you can just use sugar instead. We're coming to you live from Tres Gatos in Jamaica Plain, by the way. That is a bookstore and record store. Catherine was mentioning earlier, and I wonder how the 2 people on camera before me felt, or the presenters, organizers. When there's no audience, when you can't hear anyone, it feels like you're in a room talking to yourself, and it is a very difficult thing to do. Right there is one of the bartenders from Tres Gatos. That is Taylor Oliveira, who took a selfie using the POS terminal.
TJ, you're doing great.
Yeah, show us yourself, Taylor.
We're with you.
This might be loud, and I apologize. You can't shake it like this. You can do it, just put it in ice and twist it around. It's going to taste about the same. Otherwise, this is also going to be loud. We need some ice. So it's 1.5 ounces of rum, 1 ounce of lime, and 1/2 ounce of sugar, and some water. And you can do that with anything. If you don't like lime juice, you can use lemon juice. If you don't like rum, you can use gin. If you do gin, sugar, and lime, it's what would you call that, Catherine? What? A gimlet. You can use vodka. I prefer mezcal, which I'll probably make one afterwards. Try to give this one to Catherine. But that is a daiquiri. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
It's all about balance, you know? Do I? That's excellent.
Cheers.
It looks delicious.
Does anyone have any questions?
I think you should ask a question.
Can I have that? Can I have that daiquiri?
Thank you, Raul. That is beautiful. Raul's his favorite restaurant ever.
Our daiquiri is available for takeout.
Oh, wow. So I muted myself, so I actually can't hear anyone. There it is.
We were wondering if they're available for takeout.
Oh, the daiquiris?
Yeah.
So the Commonwealth was going to pass some form of law, but I think that was only beer and wine in very limited amounts. But if anyone needs simple syrup or limes, feel free to send us a message. We have plenty in the basement. We have about 15 dozen eggs as well that probably won't last the next couple of weeks. But we gave away about 15 dozen, which was nice.
Yeah, and we also have dry-aged steaks.
Oh, dry-aged steaks, but I think...
So wait, can you do me a favor? Can you make Catherine get into the camera and wave hello?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hi.
There she is.
All right. So for those of you For those of you who don't know, Catherine is the very, very wonderful general manager of Tres Gatos, who has been so good to us.
No,
Oh,
go with that one.
she's going away, and she's coming back.
I'm so happy that you guys are doing this. It's so fun, and it's so nice to actually, it's very relaxing to listen to these stories. I also feel a social obligation to tell you that TJ is my work husband, and we haven't been separated since this whole thing started. So we are very much practicing social distancing. We're the small social circle for each other. So I feel obligated to, I just want people to know that we're not just casual about running into each other at Tres Gatos. This has been our office workspace for loans and fundraisers, not just for ourselves, but for one plug I want to say is that there's a fund called Mass Undocu Fund that's through Jobs for Justice. And it's specifically targeting a restaurant population that's not getting a lot of press and definitely not getting enough support, if any, from the government, which is all of our immigrant friends that work in restaurants. So when you look at statistics from the Restaurant Association of America, it's probably 1 in every, I want to say 8 cooks and people that work in the kitchen are immigrants without documentation. So a lot of people don't realize that even though people like me and TJ are collecting unemployment right now, a lot of our friends in Boston and beyond are not able to do that. And they're heads of household that now literally have nothing. This is, for Boston, tomorrow is going to be the first day that Tres Gatos isn't paying our staff. And so they had enough for the last 2 paychecks, but a lot of people in a lot of restaurants in Boston and Boston owners like David Doyle are really concerned about how small businesses that don't have a cash flow for restaurants anymore are going to support some of their longest tenured and most hardworking employees. So I just wanted to make a plug for that fund and just say, you know, please think about so many people besides the restaurant workers that are able to get unemployment, but the people in this country that are not able to get it. So thanks for listening to my pitch.
Thank you so much, Catherine. We really appreciate it.
Say the name of the fund again, please.
It's called the Mass Undocu Fund, and it's through actually I think it's based in JP. It's called Jobs for Justice. So if you Google that, you'll see that they're actually taking donations. It's for Massachusetts, all undocumented immigrants that are workers that pay taxes but are not able to collect unemployment. They're trying to make a fund viable. And I think it's online, I think as of Thursday in terms of the donations, but I'm not sure when the application process is live.
So just so everybody knows, if you look in your chat window, I posted an article about them, and then I found the actual link to the Mass Undocu Fund.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Jeremy.
Your chat window, there it is.
Right on, Jeremy. And one other little plug for another JP business is Blue Frog Bakery, who makes the best breads and definitely the best chocolate croissants. They have totally stepped up because they're one of the few businesses that are open. And just to let your friends know that might be working in restaurants, anybody that works in JP who no longer has income, you can pick up a meal kit from them. They're open 7:30 to 3:30 every day. And they have procured goods like whole chickens that are uncooked, potatoes, produce, and things like that. So that's an awesome resource locally for people to know about.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I just have to say one thing. It's very through the looking glass to see you and then you on a screen, right? I'm gonna send it back.
I'm thankful I showered. That's my thing.
So are we.
That makes one of us. Well, thank you, TJ, and thank you to all your bartenders who are having a hard time right now. I think you're part of a unique group of people who, you guys are great listeners, and whatever information that you give people, I would believe it the same as I believe the information from my doctor. So you have a lot of responsibility in your hands, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I hope we can help you. Catherine, I want you to know the record player that we have in the other room and a number of the records did come from Tres Gatos. My wife and I get a lot of joy out of the records. And the record player also keeps the upstairs neighbors from relaxing on our porch. So thank you. Our next storyteller, Xavier Mahoney, teaches history and politics at Blue Hills Regional High School. He's a Maine native. He enjoys skiing with his 2 young children. And he spends a lot of time on his skateboard and yo-yoing.
That's about right. We're live. I have a voice. I'm not muted. This is fantastic. All right, I want to thank Jeremy for having me. I've never done this before. I feel like I'm a little close. And he called me last week and he's like, would you tell a story for this fundraiser we're doing? And I was like, I'm not going to say no to you either way. So whether I want to do it or not is irrelevant.
Can I come in as the voice of God for a second and just say, this is the most gifted storyteller who I know. I work in the same high school as Mr. Mahoney. And
he says this before I tell the story.
Every student who I talk to says, I love my history class. And if they love their history class, I know who their teacher is.
Well, the difference between history and English is history actually happened. Because I learned that the same thing. But everyone thinks like English teachers are very highly revered, but English teachers are highly revered, but history teachers are like, oh, you must coach something. But it's just nonfiction. So thank you for having me. And I feel deeply about the cause. I worked for 15 years in the service industry, bartending. I was a floor manager for Legal Seafoods. Working in the service industry put me through college. Well, my parents put me through college, but my spending money, every dime that I spent in college was mine. It got me through grad school. I paid for grad school cash from working in the service industry. And the down payment on the Pelican Bar, which is Canton, Massachusetts, this is our 11th finest private establishment, Zagat rated. I made that up. I don't even know where we're rated, but all of it came from the service industry. And some of the best friends I've ever had in my life and some of the most important lessons I ever learned were in restaurants. And those people are hurting right now. And this isn't easy. So this is a worthwhile endeavor. Like Jeremy said, I'm a teacher. This is my 12th year. I'm a native of Maine. I came down here with the intention of maybe going to grad school and moving back to Maine and teaching, and I never left. And I love it here, and I love my school. I work at Blue Hills Regional in Canton. It's a vocational school. And when Jeremy asked me to do this, and I'm thinking about all these different situations and different flashbacks in my past of occasions of unexpected kindness, I kept coming back to students. And when you work with teachers and you go to conventions and you're sitting in meetings, and the question always comes up, why did you want to become a teacher? And you always hear people say, and there's a lot of teachers out there right now, and I think they'd agree, you always hear teachers say, well, I just wanted to share my knowledge with young minds. I enjoy watching them improve. I enjoy watching them grow and watching them become something. And that's part of it. And I've always thought that was a cop-out garbage answer, because I think the reason I became a teacher was because I was getting something out of it. And there are days when I go to school and all I get out of teaching is what they gave me. And I mean that genuinely. And especially as a coach, I think I've gotten more from my players than they've gotten from me. And sometimes I almost feel guilty about it, because you learn a lot more from them than you would think going into it. So this story, I'm going to change the names, not that it matters. But my first year teaching at Blue Hills, on my very first day, it was my third period class, I distinctly remember, and the very first student to walk in was a girl named Kimmy. And she walked in, and she was tiny. She was this tiny little thing. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. She was 4'10", and to this day, she is 4'10". She had an enormous attitude, but we'll get to that in a minute. She walked in with a bow in her hair, holding a book, and sat down in the front row very quietly and just stared ahead. And I said, I'm going to judge a book by its cover. This girl is probably very sweet and very quiet, and I was incredibly wrong. And she sat down, and the other 6 kids walked in. It was a very small class. I was a first-year teacher, and I think they were taking it easy on me. It was a very small class, 7 kids total. And I passed out the syllabus and the rules, the expectations for the class. And we went over everything, and there were very few questions. And at the end, she asked about makeup. I said, well, what about it? She said, can I do my makeup in class? And I said, well, I'd rather you not, but what are you talking about? Like, you talking about lip gloss? Like combing your hair? She said, yeah, that's it. I just, sometimes I put on chapstick. And I said, yeah, it's not a problem. That's fine. 45 minutes later, as I'm teaching, in the middle of a lesson, she reaches into her bag as she's looking at me and pulls out a small tackle box and puts it on her desk. And I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm looking at her speaking, and I'm trying to teach, but I'm infinitely curious as to what the hell she's doing. And she opens it, and she's looking at me, listening. And she's like, yeah, okay. And then she starts opening the sides. It's literally a tackle box, and there's brushes, and there's powders and stuff. And she's like, And she spent 15 minutes. I'm still not even sure what everything in there did. And finally I said, Kimmy, is this what you meant by makeup? And she said, oh yeah. I said, can you put that away? And she said, but you said it was all right. And I said, I didn't know that this is what makeup involved. And she said, oh, no problem. And she put it away. And at the end of the class, and keep in mind, this is my first day, I walked down to the English department, and there was a veteran teacher who was about to retire, Miss Kojal. And I walked in, and I said, she said, how are things going? And I said, great. So far, I love all the kids. They've been really good. I had an interesting experience with this girl, Kimmy. And she said, oh, yeah, her older sister is here as well. You know that, right? And I said, oh, are they related? Because she's in my psychology class as a senior. And she said, you'll have an interesting time with them. And I said, no. She's fine. She's just this innocent, very kind little thing. And she said, she's going to eat you alive. And I said, she's this tiny little thing with a bow in her hair. She's not going to eat me alive. She said, you just wait. About a week later, we're coming at this is the fall of 2008. And I'm about to propose to my wife. And I've got this genius idea. I guess it was about 2 or 3 weeks later. And my idea was to have this crossword puzzle. I'm sorry, a jigsaw puzzle. And there was going to be a picture of both of us. And I was going to take out the piece where she's wearing a ring. I was going to have it superimposed. I was going to present her that piece. I had this whole thing in my head. And I go over it with the kids. And I think this is genius. And the kids are going to really think this is great, particularly the girls. I'm wrong. Because Kimmy tells me right away, she's like, why do guys always screw this up? She said, you are overcomplicating a very, very simple thing. You go to the beach, you get down on one knee, you ask the question. There is no Jumbotron. You don't have a friend filming it. You just ask her the question and you move on with life. And that's actually what I did. She was right. I scrapped my entire idea and I went to the beach, and that's where I proposed, simply because she told me to do that. And a few weeks after that, Kimmy had her first detention with me after I had warned her to please not write her name all over the desk. And she had written her name everywhere. And I told her, and I told all the students, this is why you don't write your name on the desk. Because if you write your name on the desk, someone is going to write some sort of editorial comment about you. So if you write Kimmy, somebody will come along and write Kimmy blank, blank, blank. Kimmy felt the need to point out to me, after somebody had done this, what somebody had said about her in class, to which I said, but that didn't happen because you didn't write your name on the desk, right? And she said, no, I wrote my name everywhere. And I said, yeah, I already know that. But apparently, you're just going to confess. So like, you have to stay after school and you have to clean up all the desks. So she stays after. And I give her the cleaning utensils to clean all the desks. I've got the spray and the paper towels. And she says, this isn't how you clean desks. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, you clean it with hairspray. If you want to get writing off the desk, you use hairspray. You don't use Simple Glue. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, do you think this is my first time cleaning my name off a desk? And I said, I suppose you're right. You would know better than me. And to this day, for the record, hairspray is the best thing to remove things off of a desk. So Kimmy was perpetually late, and Miss Kozel turned out to be right. She was an absolute pain. She was called to the office and administrative offices pretty regularly. There was a lot of gossip involved. She would show up late every day, and I would say, Kimmy, you can't show up late. I have to give you detention. She said, no, you don't understand. I was helping so-and-so, or I was with so-and-so, or I have a pass from Mr. So-and-so. Mr. So-and-so, by the way, would write a pass for anybody. So finally, she's late one day, and I'm visibly frustrated. And a kid named Sean speaks up, and he says, Mahoney. And I said, that's Mr. Mahoney, Sean. He said, all right. He said, you know why Kimmy's late every day, right? And I said, because she doesn't care, and because she can get away with it, because she's always got a pass from so-and-so. He said, no. He's like, you don't know why she's late? And the kids were all looking at me, all 6 of them. And I said, no. And they said, well, she walks Nick to class. And now I'm irate, because Nick must be her boyfriend. And it turns out that Nick is not her boyfriend. Nick is a student in her shop. I teach at a vocational school, who has special needs. And every day, she would walk with him to class. Now, it's not that Nick didn't know where he was going, and I'm pretty sure that Kimmy, to this day, would admit that the reason that she actually walked him to class was that she could also be late if she did so. He didn't need any help getting to class, but she always made sure, just in case, that he got to class. And Nick was something of a celebrity, so he'd be stopped fairly regularly to say hi to so-and-so and so-and-so, and teachers would even stop. Very well-liked kid, and she was always with him. But it wasn't just a class. I would see her with him in the morning. She would walk to lunch with him when they had, that's something that kids always want to be on time for. She would walk back from lunch with him. And then after school, or even down at the athletic field, she'd be with Nick. And that always stood out to me, because I didn't always see her redeeming qualities. I saw someone who always had an answer, who was kind of snappy and sometimes had an attitude. But she went out of her way for this kid. And I tucked that in the back of my mind, and I moved on with life. And then I had her a couple of years later as a junior. And we're teaching psychology, which I'm terrible at because I've taken one psychology class my entire life. Jeremy actually has a degree in this, but would they make him teach it? No, they give it to me, who has a degree in world history, who knows absolutely nothing about psychology. But that's what I teach. And we're getting to Lawrence Kohlberg. And Kohlberg taught about morality and the levels of morality. And little children, they do things simply so they won't get in trouble, or simply because somebody told them it was wrong. And then teenagers do things because, well, that's what's expected, or what would my friends do, or what do my parents expect? And then adults do things for literal moral reasons, because things are right or things are wrong. We're doing this exercise. It's called Kohlberg's Moral Dilemma. Some of you may know it. And she was the only one that reached the level 5 or level 6. The only one who gave a response that was higher order moral thinking. And I tucked that away, and I said, she doesn't always exhibit that, but apparently she has it. Kimmy was a cheerleader. And she was a serious cheerleader. And I don't know if you know about the cheerleading world. I know very little about it, but apparently there's like a whole documentary on Netflix, and it's a very big deal. Cheerleaders are a very big thing. They're not a big thing at Blue Hills, but she is an accomplished cheerleader, and she was a flyer, which you can imagine a flyer is somebody who gets thrown up in the air, which makes sense being 4'11", like 80 pounds. She was pretty much primed for that. So she is kind of a big deal in the cheerleading world. Now, at Blue Hills, we are a regional school. We're very much a working class demographic, and getting kids to games is not always easy. So the one time all these kids are in the same place at the same time as pep rallies. And there's a pep rally in the spring, the pep rally in the fall. And it's the fall pep rally for the football team. She's a junior. And the cheerleaders are kind of central to this. They connect all the moving parts. And when we move from one event or one announcement to the other, they all cheer. And there's 850 kids making noise for them, which they would never really see at a football game or a basketball game, because we have a much, much smaller student attendance and those sort of things. So this is a very big deal in the cheerleading team. And the cheerleaders are all sitting in the front row, and I'm actually emceeing this event, carrying things from one event to the other. And the cheerleaders are there, and I introduce the cheerleaders. And the cheerleaders get up to do their cheer. And the next sequence of events happens in a matter of seconds. In a matter of seconds. But the emotions that I'm going to try to express will take a few minutes. I notice as the cheerleaders are coming up and the music is about to play, up in the back row, another student named Joey, who's sitting with the juniors close to the back row. And Joey has autism. He's on the autism spectrum. And he does not do well with loud noises. Now, how he had ended up in the back row, I'm not exactly sure. A lot of people had to keep an eye on a lot of different things, and maybe something got lost in the shuffle. But he's sitting in the back row. And I notice him with his hands over his ears, and he's got this look in his face, like, this is not okay, and I don't want to be here. And anybody knows anything about autism, a lot of stimulus or loud noises is sometimes not very well received. And he was having a very, very tough time with this. And he wanted out. And he was in such a panic that he just sat down and put his hands over his ears and his hands on his elbows on his knees and was starting to rock. And the girls are about to start cheering. And all of a sudden, as I'm seeing this, and I don't know that even the kids around him, because, they're 15 or 16 years old, they're in their own world. This is a pep rally, like, they're going crazy. I don't think they really noticed or understood the importance of what was happening with Joey. I see Kimmy, all 4'11" of her, walk directly over to the front row, put her hand on the shoulder of two kids, and she just starts pulling herself right up to Joey in the back. She grabs Joey by the hand and she talks to him. She gets right down low with him, which isn't hard for her because she's 4'11". She gets right down low with him, and I don't know what she said to him because I'm too far away. And there's 850 kids, and it's loud and it's noisy. But it must have been something kind and compassionate. And Joey grabbed her hand, and she brought him down, and the cheerleaders are looking at her like, we need to start. And she's shaking her head and saying, you go. And she walks him down out of the stands and walks past the head of the special ed department at the time. And they had a conversation. I can only imagine that the special ed director said, you know what, I'll take this. And Kimmy must have said, no, I have this. I've got this right now. I've got it. And I could see Joey's hand wrapped around her. She just crushing her hand. And she walked him right out of the gym. And that was it. And the special ed director followed. It was a few months later when I actually spoke to Kim. And I said, I remember what you did for him that day. And instead of saying, oh yeah, well, thanks for noticing that, she said, I know. Can you believe that nobody around him noticed that? I mean, all they had to do was get him out of there. And I said, well, Kimmy, we're talking, teenagers who are yelling, and it's like a big deal. And maybe they just didn't notice. And how do you not notice that? She said, noticed, and it was my time. And I said, yeah, but you were kind of like looking up at him. And she said, you have to notice those things. Like somebody had to notice. She didn't look for any credit for it. She was angry that somebody else hadn't just jumped up to help him. And in psychology, we talk about the bystander effect. The more people that see something bad happening, the less chance there is of one of those individuals actually getting involved. The more isolated the incident is, the fewer parties involved, the more apt somebody is to step in and say, I need to fix this or I need to help this individual. There were 850 people in that room, and the bystander effect did not affect Kim. She went up and helped him. Like I said, she spent most of her time in administrative offices. She was not exactly the most well-behaved individual. But I think the lesson that we all learn here is that human nature is good. People are by their very nature good. Even people that we may deem to be not so good by their general demeanor. The default of all human beings is to do good. It really is, and I truly believe that. I think it's inherent in mankind. Fast forward to 3 years later. I'm going to tell this quickly because I think I've actually stretched this out too far. Her younger sister is now at the school. And she came in with a student that my wife had taught. And my wife is a special educator. And she said, would you please watch out for this kid? I really, really like this kid. His family is really worried about him. They really, really hope that this is going to be the right fit for him at Blue Hills. And I said, sure, I'll do what I can. And he kind of came into his own, and he was doing all right. In junior year, Shannon, she was the younger sister. It was prom time, and she was relatively popular, and so was her boyfriend, and really, really nice guy. And I said, are you excited for prom? And she said, oh yeah. And I said, you got the dress all picked out and everything. And she said, oh yeah, I'm going to wear peach, and Anthony's going to wear like the peach vest and everything, and it's all good. And I said, all right, well, great. I'll see you at prom. Have a good time. And prom night comes around. And kids will come up randomly and say, hey, can you hold can you take a picture of us? Or can we have a picture with you? And Shannon walked up and she said, can you take a picture of me and John? And I said, sure. And I said, are you not here with your boyfriend? She said, no. I said, did he not show up? Did you guys break up? And she said, no, everything's fine. I said, well, why aren't you at the prom with your boyfriend? And she said, because John didn't have a date. I said, what do you mean? She said, John. I asked him who he was going to the prom with, and he said he wasn't going. So I told him he was going with me. And I said, and your boyfriend's all right with that? And she said, yeah, he didn't want to come to this. I said, all right. So she brought John to the prom. And John wouldn't have gone to the prom otherwise. And like I said, she and her sister were not angels. And I was a little bit concerned about what she was doing after the prom and where her date might be going after the prom, because I didn't think it might be appropriate for her date. And I said, well, what are you doing after the prom? She said, well, I'm going to a party. And I said, well, what is John doing? She said, oh, he's coming with me. I said, is that the best idea? And she said, I talked to his parents. My boyfriend's coming. We're going to drive him home at midnight. I know both of these girls pretty well. I had them both for 3 years of high school. They were a pain. They were not easy day in, day out. They were late to class constantly and constantly had an excuse. But someone somewhere instilled a basic modicum of kindness And they extended that to the people who needed it most. And they were terrible students, but they were good people. And they are now doing very well in life. And I think that's the extent of my story. Is that you see unexpected acts of kindness sometimes in places where you may not expect it.
Xavier, that was fantastic, man. Thank you so much.
Hence unexpected. Well, thank you very much.
I'm sure those two ladies would be ecstatic to know that the story of you meeting them and getting to know them and them being difficult in your life, but them being a shining light in your life would make their day.
To this day, they're difficult. I've stayed in touch. They're still difficult.
Well, I want to take a couple minutes right now and give the mic back to Michael. We're going to listen to a couple ditties that he's got going, a little music, and then we'll get back to the stories.
Oh, I hadn't necessarily planned to do that, but I will.
Oh, I'm sorry.
if it helps. But Jeremy, why don't you jump in and give a
yeah. Allow me. I'm gonna keep it on you while you play, so that way people aren't looking at me because I feel better about that.
okay.
Folks, first of all, to our storytellers, to TJ for the chance to for teaching us about the daiquiris. Thank you so much. Everyone, this has been, so far, it's been really amazing. We are up to, I'm checking to make sure, I'm refreshing, $2,405 that we have raised. So thank you so much to all of you. Michael, you're on the spot right now. I know you weren't planning on playing a little bit. If you want to, you feel free. What we're going to do, folks, is we're going to take an intermission because let's be honest. If you're drinking as much as we hope you're drinking, you need to go to the bathroom. So you have until, hey, Joel, I know that we told you you were gonna tell it at 10 o'clock, but we're a little bit actually ahead of schedule. So how about we get you going, Joel, at 9:50, which is 10 minutes from now. So Michael, you got 10 minutes to entertain us, if that's cool with you. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you in another 10 minutes.
I can't guarantee that it'll be entertaining, but you know.
I'm sure it will.
Tell me if you can hear this.
I heard that. Woohoo! Play Freebird. Sorry, Michael, too easy.
Yeah, too easy, right?
How are we doing, everybody? Are we all ready to come back?
Hang in there. I've got some comments that people were upset that I was standing too much and I was making people nervous, but then they didn't like I was sitting, so I lost the suit coat. I hope that's
Oh, all
A
right.
little less formal. That's good.
We're in the second half, folks. This is the important part. I want to give a couple shout outs to some people who have helped me get through this. My good friend Jason Denham, he's starting up his own yoga business, Grateful Moves. His meditation practice has been incredibly helpful to get through some stressful times. So if you are trying to come up with any sort of side hustle during this crazy, crazy time, throw it up in the chat. We're happy to give you a shout out. I also wanted to thank my good friends Patrick and Joanna French and their employees over at Distraction Brewing. They offered to bring some beers over to the MIT police a couple weeks back, and I think things have gotten a little crazier over there since then. But we're so happy that you folks are partners, and we hope you're doing well. And we're looking to help your business, and I'm looking forward to when this crazy time is over and we can sit down and have a beer over at your new brewery. So if there's anything else you folks think of and you want us to bring up, please let us know. This is a good time to help everyone out. Oh, Distraction Brewery will deliver tomorrow to us. Is that for us? I don't know. Thank you, Joanna. I just saw a chat that she said they're coming over to MIT tomorrow. So thank you so much for what you've done for our folks over at MIT Police. It means a lot to us. A lot of our guys are a little stressed out on the day-to-day, so thank you. I want to thank everyone who has donated tonight. So far, we're at 2,400. Our original goal was to raise $1,500 tonight, and we've blown past that. So thank you, everyone, for your generosity tonight. Our next storyteller coming up is Joel Greer. Joel runs a music festival in Indie Fest. He is the founder of Team Summit, a nonprofit out of Lawrence, Massachusetts. Joel, I want to thank you so much for telling a story tonight, and I'm going to hand the mic off to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this event. It's been fantastic, and I really appreciate it, and it's such a great cause. So thank you, Jeremy and Andrew. I guess I'm just going to jump right into it. If you ever heard the song, I'm sure most of you have, but the song Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, I don't know if you're aware of it, but it starts with a string section, 14 seconds long, cellos, violin, in rhythm until Paul McCartney's voice takes over. First time I ever heard that song, I was about 8 or 9 years old, on a bus leaving Boston, Mass, heading to Lawrence, Mass, curled up next to my mom. She handed me a transistor radio. I clicked it on, and on came Eleanor Rigby. At that moment, it gave me a feeling of comfort and safety like I've never felt before. It's hard to explain, but I can tell you this, I really needed it at that moment. See, my mom suffered from mental illness and drug abuse. So she couldn't hold a job. She got arrested a lot, worked the streets. She did whatever she had to do to survive, and she wouldn't follow any of the rules of society. And eventually she dropped out of society completely and took me with her. We were homeless living in the streets of Boston. We would sleep in doorways, shelters, backs, seats of cars, whatever we had to do for shelter, we would find it. For food, we would go into restaurants, we would eat and run. We would panhandle on the street, ask for money. We would go to soup kitchens. There's an area in Boston called Haymarket Square, and I'm pretty sure that most of you are familiar with it because the majority of you are probably from the Boston area. I would go to Haymarket Square on weekends, and if any of you ever been there on Saturday, or if you haven't been, it is so vibrant there. It's about 20 to 30 fruit peddlers, and they peddle their wares, and they're yelling and screaming over each other to restaurateurs or people just walking by, trying to sell all the fruit. It's alive with energy. The air smells like citrus. I would go there on Saturday afternoons when me and my mom were living in Boston in the streets, but it wasn't for the energy. I would go to Haymarket Square to scavenge for food so me and my mom could eat. I would look on the ground, jump in dumpsters if I need to, ask the fruit peddlers for it, and I would steal it if I needed to. All that led me to a conclusion, even at that young age, that I needed to get my mom home. Home would be with her parents, my grandparents back in Lawrence, Mass. I knew it wasn't the best situation, but I knew that it would be better than where we were. I hoped it would be better than we were. Hot summer day, not long after I made that decision, we're walking down the street in Boston, Commons on my right-hand side. I knew the trailway station was straight ahead if I kept walking. So I decided I'm going to get my mom home. And I said, hey, Mom, we're going back to Lawrence. No, we're not, Joel. We're not going back. We can't. They won't let us on the bus. I was determined to get my mom home. I kept walking. We're going, going. She tried every trick in the book. One thing, I remember her saying to me, no, Joel, they won't let us on. We have no money. But I knew that in emergencies, the buses would let you on in family emergencies. These are the little things you pick up on when you're homeless. You pick up on little tidbits, how to get from here to there, just all those type of survival skills. Kept walking, and I got my mom on that bus. We were on that bus. I was so scared. I can't tell you how scared I was because I knew that it would be better back in Lawrence. I was hoping, but I knew the world behind me. I knew how to be homeless. I was really, really good at it. I knew how to hustle the streets. I know how to find food, but I didn't know what was on the other end of that bus ride. I was so frightened. And I remember curling up next to my mom and thinking those words. I'm so scared in my head. They kept going over and over. That's when she reached in her pocketbook and handed me that transistor radio. It may not seem like a random act of kindness, but if you've been around people who do drugs, no matter who it is, who are addicted to that point, and they hand you something that's of value that they could sell, it was a random act of kindness. And I clicked it on. And that's when Eleanor Rigby came on. The moment that I heard that song, a feeling of safety and comfort came over me like I never felt before, and a relationship with music started that goes on to this day today. And it's hard to explain where that came from or why. But it did, and we got back to Lawrence, and you know what? When we got back there, things got a little better. My mom pulled her act together. She got a job. I was enrolled in school. I was pulled out of school my whole life, in and out. So I was enrolled in school. She got a job. We had a house. She rented a home. And things were going really, really well. But it didn't last long because my mom's demons took back over. And she started going back to her own ways. And at night, I slept on the second floor of this house. She would have all kinds of people over, and I would be up in my bedroom. And I could hear the noise downstairs, and I could smell the marijuana going throughout the house, and I could smell the wine. It was White Niagara, because I can smell it to this day. That was the name of the wine, White Niagara, because I would find the bottles in the morning. And I can smell it, even talking about it now. But here I was, 9 or 10 at this time, curled up in a ball, frightened, because that's just not where you're supposed to be. But there was a saving grace in this. See, my mom, she loved music. And at night, when these people were partying, she would blast music. And that may not seem comforting to most, but it was to me, because I would wait for those sounds. She would listen to Motown. She would listen to bands like the OJs, a band called Tavares. She would listen over and over to the Beatles. She would listen to Concert for Bangladesh. And I would hear these, I remember hearing George Harrison play over and over in my mind. And when those songs came on, I would feel that feeling again of safety and comfort. What it felt like to me was when a parent comes in your room or somebody you love and care about, and you're kind of asleep, but they cover you with that blanket and they kind of tuck you in, but you're halfway there. That's what music did for me. It comforted me to that point. It felt like a warm blanket. Things got worse in that house. My mom continued to go downhill, really took to a life of crime. I think she ended up going to federal prison for a while, came back. Me ended up moving back in with her parents back in Lawrence. I was getting older at the time now, and it was a tough neighborhood. But I had a lot to prove there. I was a little small white kid living among a bunch of Latinos. And so I was a minority of a minority, and I had something to prove. So I went out of my way to do that. And I was successful in that venture. And I ended up joining Latino gangs and getting involved in a lot of trouble. But I was confused, didn't know where to be. I was sleeping on couches. Entering my teen years, I started dealing drugs and getting involved in higher crimes. And it was really confusing for me there. And I remember always being a little bit scared. But there was a saving grace there too, because I was lucky enough to be born at the time a new genre of hip hop music started in the United States, was born out of the United States actually. New genre called hip hop out of Brooklyn, New York. And my friends, brothers and cousins would go to New York City and pick up these bootleg cassette tapes and bring them back to us. And we would play them. It's like Melly Mel, Fab Five, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, and oh man, that music, I'm telling you, we would put that music on in the living rooms, we'd be smoking weed, but we were listening to that. And as cliche as this may sound, we could relate with it. I could relate with it because the things they were singing about were right outside my door. And I remember at those moments hiding in the music. I would listen to a Beastie Boys songs, and to some, it would just be spouting lyrics. But to me, it was a place to go. I love that music so much that I started carrying a boombox with me. I would carry that boombox everywhere I went in that city. And I gotta tell you, it wasn't pretty. I was like a 5'7" white kid. For some reason, I never cut my hair. It was everywhere. I could hardly carry the boombox around, so I was always kind of tilted over. But that music was with me. But upon reflection, I was never really carrying that boombox. You see, when I think about it now, that boombox was carrying me. That was getting me through. That music was carrying me through. And as I got older, I started straightening out my life. And there was a lot of social programs within the city that grabbed onto me in my 20s. I was a 5th grade dropout. But they held on to me and they got my GED. And I ended up going to college. But I always had music with me along the way. Even as I got older, you know what? I started facing major depression because of childhood trauma and many other reasons. I would curl up on my couch. And I knew where to turn during those moments. I would turn to music. I would listen to August and Ever After by the Counting Crows, Don't Judge, and a lot of Conor Oberst stuff when it came out later on, and even Morrissey at times. Yeah, and if anyone's listening to Morrissey, it's a little over the top, but yes, Morrissey. So my soundtrack kept growing. Music was with me. And the girl that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with said to me once, I fell in love with you watching you mouth the words of a song. And that stuck with me. It's all that. Music has just been a constant part of my life. And as my soundtrack grew, my love and passion for music grew. And although my love and passion for music grew, I never knew the capacity to love something as much as I loved my son when he was born. Because I ended up having a son as time went on, Jacob Christopher Greer. And when he was born, things changed, man. Even though I was doing better, my life was dedicated to that kid. And I didn't have a lot to give him. Yeah, I went to college and I achieved some stuff, but I didn't have a lot of family. I didn't have a lot of money, but I wanted to give him the same gifts that I had. And one of them was I wanted to cover my son with that one blanket. I wanted him to give him that gift of music. And he would be about 3 or 4 years old, maybe even a little bit older. We would sit and listen to records, me and him, in a small apartment. And I remember one in particular. We would listen to Cat Stevens, In the Wind. And during those moments, I remember picking up my son, holding him above my head, and spinning him around, listening to that song. And his eyes would burst, and he would have a smile on his face. And my heart would be so full at those moments. Because you see, at those moments, my love of my son and my love of music, they were morphing together. And those were amazing moments in my life. And I'll never forget those. And that young man, Jacob, he went on to be a really successful kid in high school. A lot of academic achievements, captain of a few sports teams, really politically involved. He ended up getting a internship at the State House at the age of 15. Man, was I proud of him. 15 years old, my son's got an internship. Coming from where I came from at 15, man, that's amazing. I remember driving him into his internship on the first day. Hot summer afternoon, and I'm driving down this, we drove down 93, we parked the car, we were walking towards the State House, so we got to a spot, and I said, all right, Jake, the State House is right up there, let's walk up. No, Dad, you know what? What, Jake? I got it from here. Okay. I watched them cross the street, watched them walking up to the hill, suit on, briefcase in hand, walking towards the State House. By the way, I don't know, was in that briefcase, I think it was like peanut butter and jelly or something, but whatever. So I watch him fade off into the State House. At that moment, something hit me. I looked around. It was the same exact spot that I talked my mom into going home. The same spot that I said to my mom, we're going back to Lawrence, was the same spot I watched my son walk towards the State House. It's funny how things go full circle like that. I was excited for Jake to get out all day. We're going to go to dinner. I want to talk to him about this. He gets out, we meet. I said, hey, Jake, let's go get some food. You know what, Dad? I just want to go home, I think. Cold at that age, I just want to be with my friends. Okay, that's fine. On the way home, I told him way, way too many times of how proud I was of him. And we had some moments of silence, awkward silence, the way it can be between a father and a son at that age. And during one of those awkward moments of silence, I said, hey, Jake, I'm going to put on the Beatles. And I went to go put in the CD, and he said, hey, Dad, yep, I don't like the Beatles as much as you. And I have to tell you, at that moment, if you can picture that scene from Lady Bird where she jumps out of the car, if that car was a Tesla, I would have opened the door and pushed him out. But I did it. And I put on the Beatles. And Eleanor Rigby came on. And I said, hey, Jake, this is really beautiful. And he didn't say anything. And then about a minute later, hey, Dad. Yeah, Jake. This is beautiful. Thank you. That's my story.
Hey, Turco, I'm going to talk over you.
Fantastic.
All right. Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you, Joel. And I just want to tell, you know what, I guess I'll put myself on. I'm going to cancel your spotlight, and I'm going to put me on for a second. Because I can do that. I just want to tell everybody that, first of all, thank you, everyone. This is great. Really amazing. You guys have been fantastic. I just want to tell everyone that actually the way that Joel ended up involved in this is Joel and I met each other in Tres Gatos. We met each other at the book and record shop, and I think it took about 35 seconds for us to realize how much we have in common, how excited we are to know each other and to work with each other. And I want everybody to check out at some point the Summit Indie Fest, because it is a music festival. Clearly, Joel loves music. It is a music festival that Joel runs, and all of the money that goes into it goes directly to the nonprofit that Joel runs to really improve life in Lowell, this place that he has clearly that he loves and has embraced himself. So this guy is not just a great storyteller, but he has a great story. And Summit Indie Fest is the thing that you should check out. Turco, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Joel, if you can actually throw up the oh, never mind. Michael's way ahead of me. Joel, thank you so much for that story. That was beautiful. And I think everybody here can think of a time where music really touched their life. And, you know, we've all been driving in the car or walking down the street and we hear that song in our head or we hear that song on the radio and we just remember a time. And, you know, thank you for that story that kind of made that all kind of come back. I next want to turn it over to Nikki Stein. Nikki is from Tres Gatos. Nikki, she's a writer, she's a bartender, she lives in JP. She's a book and vinyl enthusiast. She's spending her isolation days in high fidelity S style organizing and reorganizing her record collection. And when that gets old, she reads and she hangs out with her cat. So Nikki, take it away.
Hold on, we're gonna get Nikki spotlighted. Hold on 1 second. We're just gonna find her and put her on there.
Okay, Nikki's gonna be showing us an after dinner drink lesson. She's also from Tres Gatos. And again, we want to thank the people from Tres Gatos and the bartending staff there for making themselves available tonight.
All right, we're looking for her. I admit it. I'm looking for her in my lineup right now.
Pick them up briefly.
She did come. Oh, there she is. There you are. Nikki, you're on.
Hi. Sorry, I'm isolating in my parents' house in Connecticut. So Wi-Fi is like iffy on a good day. So apparently between the kitchen and the living room, it changed a little bit. But anyway, I'm gonna do a riff on an amaretto sour because I'm gonna do an after dinner drink. So I think an amaretto sour is a drink that gets like a bad rap. I think that's fair. It can be made poorly or it can be made really well, which I think is true of a lot of cocktails. This one in particular, it can be too sweet. It can be unbalanced, but if you do the right thing, it's like one of my favorite after dinner drinks. So I think all sours should be made with an egg white. If that freaks you out, like, I get it, that's fine. You can adapt. You can just do without an egg white. It adds an amazing texture and it does kind of like soften the sweetness of the drink. So just separate out the egg white. This has been like the biggest fear of my entire day. It's like, I'm gonna have to separate out an egg white in front of 40 people. Really stressful.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. So separate out your egg white. It's important to get the whole thing because the proteins are what's gonna like really give you that nice foam on top. So get out the entire egg white. If you can't get it the first time, like just get the yolk out. It's not a big deal. So 2 ounces of amaretto. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's a big cocktail. You're gonna balance it out with other stuff. And then I use 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lemon juice, which is gonna be a traditional ingredient for any sour, amaretto sour, whiskey sour, pisco sour. And then your traditional ingredient is gonna be simple syrup. This is the part that's really easy to make pretty much whatever you want to put in it. I made a chamomile simple syrup with orange rinds. So it's not super fancy. You can probably make it with stuff you have in your house. You can use a different kind of tea. Tea is like one of my favorite cocktail ingredients in the whole world. Really versatile, not super overbearing, but in a cocktail like this, you can taste a lot of the flavor. And then the other thing I like to add is some orange bitters. Again, if you have it, it's super nice, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. I'd like 3 heavy dashes because I happen to really love bitters. But if you don't, that's not a big deal. So the big thing about an egg white cocktail is that you're gonna wanna shake it without ice first. That's how you're gonna get it to foam up, and you're pretty much creating like a meringue on the fly. Sorry, I'm also using an Instant Pot to prop up. Setup is like super advanced here. So it's weird to shake a cocktail with no ice in it. It looks kind of funny. It feels kind of funny. You also want to shake it for like 30 seconds, which is something I didn't consider when I thought that I had to do it on camera. Looking for the song. Anyway, shake it really hard. Think about the fact that you're literally creating a meringue with a cocktail. And then you add ice and shake it for another 30 seconds. More of my advanced setup. So, like I said, any cocktail, any sour, gonna be spirit, egg white, lemon juice, and then something sweet. You can use honey, you can use simple syrup, demerara syrup. I infuse simple syrup because it's an easy way to just do a twist on a cocktail. Always double strain your egg white cocktails because otherwise you get like funky.
We had a quick question. How much simple syrup are you using?
I use 3/4 of an ounce, which again, it can be kind of a sweet cocktail. You can adjust as you need. Amaretto is sweet, but lemon juice gives you that sour aspect. And because I use bitters, I do like to have kind of a little bit of extra sweetness. The other thing that's important with an egg white cocktail is to always like express something over the top. Otherwise, just like the flavor can get a little funky on your nose. You should have something like fresh to greet your palate. There's no straw, so the first way that you taste is with your nose. It's really important. And then I garnish it with a little bit of Angostura bitters. Super pretty. I use like a little toothpick or something like that. Just kind of swoop it around, make it pretty.
That is a fantastic looking cocktail.
Thank you. I have no one. I'm literally in isolation. I have no one to give it to. Whoever said that they trust bartenders as much as doctors, I'm telling you the truth. It's really yummy. And if you don't think you like amaretto sours, you should try this one.
Can you bring back? So you have your shaker. You have the metal part. Are there 2 metal parts, or do you do the metal and the pint glass?
2 metal parts.
Okay. I'm always afraid that glass is going to go shattering everywhere when I use a pint glass. All right.
Yeah, I use the Boston shaker, so I have like the 2 tins.
Yeah.
I think the glass just makes it a lot heavier.
Yeah.
I've never broken a pint glass shaking cocktails, and I can tell you honestly that if someone was going to break a pint glass shaking cocktails, it would be me.
Okay.
So I've done it.
No. All right, Nikki, thank you so much.
No, wait, Nikki, I just want to tell you, I know you put on Facebook that you weren't so sure about doing this live. Fantastic job live.
Great.
Fantastic job.
Thank you, and thank you guys for putting this together. I think
thank you.
storytelling
Awesome
is
job.
one of the best things that human beings can do for each other, and especially in times like.
Can I tell you something? Is I love an amaretto sour, and since this began, I was like, well, that's a drink I'll never have again, and now I will. So thank you.
No shame in the amaretto sour.
Can't wait.
Come in and get one from Nikki when all this is over.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot to mention at the beginning, there was one of our storytellers that we made very clear that everyone had to send us a bio, and one of the storytellers forgot. And so throughout the evening, you'll see that I had to ad-lib at one point for one of our storytellers. And I'm not going to say which one it was, and you can try and figure out who it is, but I think I'll do her justice. Next up, we have Julie Pryor. Julie is a bounty hunter. She lived for the last 15 years in a rail car, and she's trained an army of cats. If everything does go south with the pandemic, that find her food and birds. And so you're gonna want to check in with her if supplies run low. Julie, I want to hand it over to you.
Turco, oh, you're the best. All right, so I have to embarrass Turco for a second in that I first met Turco. We don't work together, but we both work at MIT. And I was training to run the MIT Strong, I was training to run the marathon in 2014 with the MIT Strong team in memory of Sean Collier, who was obviously Andy Turco's friend, who was killed after the 2013 marathon. And so anyway, I was training, I was running out in the snow. It was like Armageddon conditions, and I forgot my friggin' keys to get back into the office. And so the only thing I needed to do was to call the MIT police, right? And so then who shows up but handsome Andy Turco, who saved the day, I know, and let me into my office. And so it's been a friendship ever since, although he's been promising to buy me a beer ever since then, and it hasn't happened. Anywho, so first of all, the last speaker, what was his name? He was awesome, and just want to say thank you to everyone for sharing such personal stories.
It's Joel.
Joel, is that right? Yeah, Joel. Anyway, just it hit me in the feels. I just appreciate all the stories that everybody is sharing tonight. I grew up going to the local Moose Lodge with my dad from a very, very young age, listening to stories. Some were sad, some were funny. But, you know, we were all kind of experiencing something together. And I was a kind of a weird, lost kid, but I felt like I belonged. So the bar environment is something I'm very comfortable with, and I'm so happy to support our local restaurant workers, our bartenders, and so I figured I'd just contribute this little story. Hope you guys will enjoy it. And yes, this is the office background. Thank you. So I live. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I hope it's all right. I'm wearing my headphones.
We can hear you fine. You're doing great.
Perfect. Okay, so I live in this great little neighborhood where everybody knows everybody, but I'm not going to tell you where I live because whenever I do, people assume that the worst, like that I'm a rich, privileged asshole from West suburban Boston. But I may be an asshole, but I'm not rich or I'm not privileged, and I live in a tiny little Cape house. It's less than 1,200 square feet, and we bought it from my grandfather after he died. So Gramps was a product of the Depression, and this house matches his mindset entirely. It's sturdy. Every square inch serves a function. We have like one bathroom with hot pink tiles from the 1950s. Our kitchen is just big enough for one person, maybe two. We have a second bedroom that's more like a glorified closet. And anyway, Gramps bought everything in bulk. Like I said, he was a product of the Depression, and he was preparing for the next disaster, which is apropos given what we're going through right now. Anyway, he had stockpiles of like industrial strength garbage bags in the basement, and they lasted us 10 years, literally, like no exaggeration. And he lived off of the food that he grew in our backyard garden. Anyway, he was a badass, but that was Gramps, and that's our house. But the town that we live in doesn't match our house at all. Most of the little homes, like mine, have been torn down, and they've been replaced by these giant McMansions that are like totally devoid of personality. And we could probably fit our Cape house into the garages of most of these houses. But in my little corner of the world, there are still a bunch of old Capes, ranch style houses. Our neighbors are mostly cops, electricians, plumbers. We got the tow truck guy who lives next door and sets off like industrial strength fireworks every other night. So we're like a little pocket of the real world, right? Towny world, but we're surrounded by crazy ass rich people. So one day, about 10 years ago, during the holiday season, we were driving through our downtown area, and we noticed just how lame the Christmas lights were on the trees in the square, like weak, lame, horrible. There was zero effort put into the process. Some utility worker got like blitzed after work and just like tossed up a couple lights onto a tree and like called it good. And it pissed me off. It pissed me off because this town square is like, it's like a gateway to our little corner of the world. And it's like somebody just puked up Christmas on our front door step, you know? And so anyway, it pissed me off. And this town has so much money and like, why don't they put more effort into, you know, the holidays? So that's when my husband and I looked at each other and we cooked up the most ridiculous plan imaginable. So we figured, if they're not going to do something about it, then goddamn it, we will. So the first thing Chris did was he gathered all the scrap metal that we have in our basement, which is a lot, by the way, because, you know, this is Gramps' house. And he built this enormous 5-foot by 5-foot star. And then he wrapped it in a mile of white Christmas lights, and he strapped it to his back. So this is where I should tell you that my husband is a forester and he climbs trees for a living. And he's insane. He's kind of like Chevy Chase from Christmas Vacation. Anyway, so now he's got this massive freaking metal star on his back. And he's about to climb this 80-foot spruce tree that we have in our front yard. And he's got like hundreds of like feet of climbing rope and a harness and like carabiners and all sorts of flasks in his car jacket. And now the neighbors are starting to notice that something weird is going down at 126 Cherry Street. So like a crowd starts to form, right? And that's when Chris starts to climb. And it's really slow going because he's like 40. I'm glad he's not here. Anyway, he's 40 and our neighbor who's a cop, you know, he looks at me and he's just like, do you want me to call an ambulance? Like just in case? And I'm like, nah. It's good. It's all good. I'm sure he's just like pausing to take a few sips from his flask on the way up. Like he's going to make it. I had no concerns whatsoever, which is a little fucked up because this is an 80-foot tree in our front yard. And the branches are falling and my husband's like swearing and it's getting tense. And some neighbors like leave because maybe they're bored or they're cold because it's like, this is around Thanksgiving or they're scared. I don't know. But just a few of us remain, and we're looking like, you know, skyward, kind of hoping for the best, and hoping he doesn't, you know, I don't know, tumble to his death. And so, eventually, as the sun is setting and the snow starts to fly, I could see my husband Chevy chasing it up to the top of this impossible tree. He makes it to the top. And so we hoot and we're hollering and we're like, you know, clanking our beer cans and our flasks while he straps the star to the top of the tree. And when the star is secure, he screams down to me and he's just like, light her up. So I don't really know what I was expecting, but when I connected the electrical cords and sent the extension cords and I sent the electricity up to this star, what happened was it almost knocked me on my ass. This sort of impossible star made of scrap metal lit up our little house and this neighborhood, and it took literally everybody's breath away, every last one of us. And it made me think of my pops, who did something similar for our family and our neighborhood when we were younger. I don't know, it just did something to us as a community, made us feel maybe a little better about the world around us. I was just happy to experience that moment with my husband and with my son and a handful of our neighbors. So we decided to keep the light on the top of the tree for a couple of weeks. But see, this story is about unexpected kindness. So here's the thing. So the star was just a little gesture for our hood. It felt good. A few of us, you know, kind of enjoyed that moment where Chris made it to the top, like Chevy Chase and, you know, whatever. We thought that was it. But it wasn't until a few days later when I found this anonymous note that was tacked to this spruce tree. And it said, and I have to actually read it. Thank you for this beautiful star. I was so surprised to see it, and I can't imagine how you got it up there. It has brought light to my darkness. Your grandfather would be proud. So this stopped me in my tracks. It was unexpected, it was kind, and it was just a star, but it meant a lot to this person. And this person, he or she, knew my grandfather, and that meant a lot to me. So we decided to make the star a tradition. So every year on Thanksgiving, Chris climbs that tree and puts that freaking star at the top, and he keeps it lit until the new year. And every year this tradition has grown. Like I said, this started 10 years ago. Now we have over 250 people that attend our annual star lighting party. My son plays the electric guitar. 2 years ago, he played the electric guitar, the AC/DC song. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. We had a bagpiper. We've had fire trucks. I mean, this shit's just out of control. It's ridiculous, but it's this beautiful thing. And it would never have happened if it weren't for this anonymous note that we got. So just a quick addendum to the story. This line about bringing, light to the darkness. We're living through some pretty messed up times right now, and it's feeling a little dark. So we decided to buck the tradition. We normally have the light up between Thanksgiving and the New Year, and just with everything going on, we figured what the hell we'll light the star again. So just today, I found another note under the spruce tree thanking us for the star. So I just wanted to say it's pretty amazing what a little light can do for us all. So cheers to everyone tonight. Thanks.
Cheers. Is there any chance you can bring us to the window and show us the star?
Oh, holy crap. Wait, yeah.
That's a good idea, Turco.
Give me a second.
I have to get her. Julie, we're gonna get you back spotlighted. I didn't know that was happening. I was moving on, but I got a little excited. Let me get back to you, and we're gonna spotlight you, and then we're gonna tell you when to do this.
Yeah, you let me know because I've got to open it on my phone and walk outside in the rain.
All right, Julie, you're spotlighted. Go.
Oh no! I'm not ready yet. I got to pull it up on my phone.
So I'll take the I can take it for a second here.
Thank you.
Here's what's gonna happen. Turco's gonna talk, but we're gonna keep on looking at you.
Okay. So Julie invited me to this thing with very little notice 2 years ago, and it's like a neighborhood potluck, and we brought the saddest sweet potato, like Depression era. Like people.
I don't think you want to mention the Depression right now.
People were like, we're gonna wait for everything else to run out before we go for the sweet potato dish.
Yeah, too soon, Turco.
And then Julie told me about this. She told me about her husband climbing the tree, but she told it in a way that sounded like, it was no big deal. Like people climb trees all the time. It's like 100 feet up. He risked his life to put the star at the top. And Julie had her hand.
That's his life. He's fine. He's fine. Hold on. That's what he does for a living. Hold on. I'm almost there. I just got to type in the number 279985. Okay, 279985. All right, I'm gonna go walk outside.
The best thing is we have no idea what that number is.
Yeah, is that the number?
Yeah, what number are you typing there?
It's on there.
Okay, wait. You know what would be helpful, Turco? Just shoot me a text with the Zoom ID,
Sure.
and then I'll go outside.
What do you need right now?
Are you on a desktop computer? Is that the issue here?
I'm on a desktop computer, so I just need you to text me so that I can open it up on my phone.
I'm doing it.
Get with the program,
I just
Turco.
want to mention everybody. This goes beyond. Do you remember at the beginning I mentioned that we're amateurs? This
Yeah,
goes
we
beyond
don't know what we're doing.
amateurs. We are full on. All right.
And now Julie's gonna actually climb the tree.
All right, Julie, are we getting you? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm looking for right now. Julie, you're gonna pop up.
It's
All
probably
right.
fine. Everything's probably fine.
Well, she's gonna climb a tree. It's gonna be fine. Listen, my kids climb trees all the
Michael,
time.
you want to play a song until we get to the tree?
Nope.
In case no one else is having fun, we are. So it's working out well.
Sarah is very upset that I've been standing so much.
Well, yeah, I've heard that. My wife has mentioned that.
Too much?
Now's a great time to mention. We have two options for supporting us. And right now, if you have not already given to the GoFundMe, we can put it back up, as well as if you want to contribute via Venmo. The Venmo is Boston for All. And I promise you that all of it is going to go directly to the Restaurant Strong Fund. As Michael's showing right now, we're up to $2,630 raised.
That's
all
awesome.
the money's going to go.
Amazing.
So
thank you, everyone.
Oh, and as long as we have this moment, I'm also going to mention, because this is going so well, we're already thinking about what's going to be next. If you are a storyteller or would like to be one, you should let us know, because like we said before, all of this is just people who are willing to put themselves out there. Maybe you're the next person who wants to put themselves out there. So you let us know, and I promise we'll do what we can. We have some ideas of what we're going to do next. My wife is freaking out that I'm even mentioning it, but I'm mentioning it anyway. So this does not have to be the last one of these. We are a community coming together, even though we're all hanging out alone. But you're not alone, because we're all going to be together. So if you are a storyteller, let us know that you want to do it. bostonforall@gmail.com, or Turco, do you want to give us an email, or just through me, or what do you choose?
You can also email me. You can email andrew.j.turco@gmail.com, and we'll keep you in mind for the next one. I know there were some folks for this past one that had expressed some interest, and we couldn't make it happen this time, but we would love to do it next time for you.
So there's lots of opportunity if people are storytellers. We are happy to do stuff. Julie, where are we?
You got
next right now?
Put in the link, and they said it was invalid, so I'm sending her another way.
That's because we don't like
it. To bring it in after.
Do we want to we
might have to move on to Lauren and then cut back after.
All right.
We'll cut back to Julie in the field.
All right. Hold on, Turco. We're going to get you. We're going to let people look at you again.
Tough break, everyone.
Andrew Turco.
All right. So next up is Lauren Spink. I met Lauren a couple of months before I got married. She is the fiance of a very good friend of mine, Michael Beautyman. And if you haven't met Michael, Michael is a very animated character. And he's one of those people where you come up with a good idea and you don't know if it's a good idea. And he's the guy that he's a personal pep rally. And oftentimes, it's a real bummer when those people find someone who are kind of quiet and,
Turco.
Yes.
This is going to be a little awkward. You can continue introducing Lauren if you want, but I think we should probably go back to Julie because she's.
Let's do it.
Because if you introduced her, finished it, went to Julie, and then Lauren.
Yeah. No, do it.
So Julie, you are on. Julie, everybody's looking at you.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, where is she? Why did I not see that? Hold on, Julie. We're looking for you. Hold on a minute. This is fun because we have no idea what we're doing. That's why it's fun.
I think there she is.
There you are, Julie. We're looking at you.
Okay. Can you see me? Okay. So can you see?
Yeah, we see you. We see it.
And there's.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Do you start?
Can you climb up there and hold on to it?
I have no shoes on. I'm in the middle of the street. I'm freezing cold, but that is the star.
All right, we need to stay there.
It's kind of at a weird angle right now, but I don't really want to walk around the block to give you a better angle.
Julie, we're very impressed by your devotion. Very impressed. Thank you. No, go inside and
there you go.
Great job.
All right, Turco, we're on you now.
Okay. All right. So what I want to say is, I was nervous meeting. It was Michael's girlfriend at the time that she was going to be a quiet person, and she's not. Michael is her quiet fiance, and Lauren is fantastic. Lauren is she's a Washington D.C. based researcher for a nonprofit organization. Her story tonight is going to be about a hike she took in Jebel Toubkal when she was 21 years old and traveling in Morocco. I could not be more excited to pass it off to Lauren Spink.
I am Washington, D.C. based now, but I should tell you all I am born and raised in Boston, so it's really good to hear some of those accents tonight. And as Turco said, I have worked in the humanitarian field for over a decade, which means I have seen a lot of desperate situations. I've also had the privilege of seeing kindness and bravery in those desperate situations. But when I heard the topic tonight, I just thought about me. Everyone has told these heartfelt stories. I'm going to tell a story about me as a dumb 21-year-old when I desperately needed the kindness of others and when I received it. It's a story of kindness in 5 acts, and it is the story of when I tried to climb Jebel Toubkal. This behind me is Jebel Toubkal. It is in Morocco. It is the highest mountain in North Africa. It clocks in at 13,671 feet high. At the wise old age of 21, I decided I would hike it with almost no gear, no money, very little preparation. I was an athletic person, but basically up to this point, I had only hiked hills for a few hours in parks. And if you look, you can see that there is snow on the top of this mountain. But for some reason, I thought it would be okay to try hiking it in sneakers that had holes in the toes. In addition to my sneakers with holes, I had a sweatshirt, a rain jacket. I did not have a backpack, but I did have a nylon gym bag, a drawstring nylon gym bag. And I had no gloves. Turns out gloves are important. And I bought some food the day before starting the hike, but nothing much. So a few oranges, carrots, raw carrots and potatoes, a can of chickpeas, basically whatever I could find available in the town before shops shut down. And thought I was ready for this hike. I met someone on the way up to the jump off point, another woman who was just as spectacularly ill-equipped for this hike as I was. So naturally we teamed up, and that's the premise. You can probably guess why I needed kindness. We set out hiking on day 1. The first few hours of the hike went fine. They went pretty smoothly. Besides running into a 65-year-old man who set a pretty solid pace for me and gave me some much needed words of encouragement, there was nothing you might call an ordinary act of kindness. But just as things were starting to get chilly, I was starting to get cold, we were getting higher into the mountains, I saw a man selling hats by the side of the trail. I had very little money on me. My bank account actually went negative while I was living in Morocco. So when I say I had very little money, I had very little money. But I was looking at the snow-capped mountain, and I thought I'd ask how much the hats were. I decided they were too expensive. I couldn't afford one. But I think the man realized I probably needed the hat. And so as I was walking away, he said to me, "Oh, that's a nice bag you have." And he offered to take my drawstring bag in lieu of cash for this hat. So that is my unexpected act of kindness number 1. And this is that hat. I have it to this day. So we finished day 1 hike. It was a grueling day of hiking, but otherwise we were intact. And we reached the refuge. My hiking partner and I reached the refuge where we were planning on sleeping that night. And this is where things really started to fall apart. Everyone at the refuge had hiking gear, winter clothes, poles. Basically, they were equipped for the hike. And the hikers and guides alike, all who were staying at this refuge, urged us not to keep going. And so it might have been somewhat irresponsible, but keep in mind, I'm 21 years old. I've been living in Morocco for 5 months, staring at this mountain, determined to hike it, and thinking, well, what's the worst that could happen? Because when you're 21, sometimes, you think, what's the worst that can happen? So we decided to go anyway. We went to bed and woke up the next morning to a fresh layer of snow that had fallen that night. And the real human kindness kicks in just when we need it most. We're getting ready in the morning to go out on this hike, and 2 staff working at the refuge showed up and gave us their insulated winter jackets to summit with. They also managed to find 1 pair of extra gloves that they gave us. We each took 1 glove, put it on one of our hands, put the other hand in our pocket, and switched gloves throughout the summit. So that was really act of kindness number 2, and it's what enabled us to get back out there on day 2 and keep going with the hike. That hike was slow in our sneakers, and with a fresh layer of snow, it was pretty difficult to see the tracks going up onto the summit. At some point though, we spotted a group of hikers with guides not too far ahead of us. And so we tried to aim roughly for the path that those hikers and guides were taking. And that kept us pretty much on track. So maybe you could call it an act of kindness that they didn't call us out on following them up the trail for free. But we did stay roughly on the same path they were. We climbed. I mostly remember pain, beautiful scenery, and wind that almost knocked me over a few times. We made it. We summited, and we summited around 15 minutes after this other group in front of us. So we'd been, pretending not to follow, but following. And we celebrated at the top with all of the people, who'd made this hike. At this point, we were really ecstatic, but out of food. We'd been hiking for hours with no food. We were very hungry. And without even asking, they started eating on the top of the summit and shared the meal with us, just gave stuff to us, gave us this feast. We all feasted together, and I'm gonna call that act of kindness number 3 on the hike for someone who was quite hungry. And then also, we hiked down the summit with them. They just let us join the group, and we all hiked off of the summit together. But yeah, so this had all taken us longer than most hikers. We were in sneakers on a mountain with snow. And so by the time we got back down to the refuge, I think there were a number of slightly worried people. So when we turned the corner and came into view, there was a group waiting outside, waiting for us to get back, and they just started clapping. And this is the most I ever felt like I was in a movie. And so I guess you probably don't call that an act of kindness, but rarely have I felt better. And so, yeah, but and that was just a wonderful feeling after summiting as well. At this point, though, it was getting pretty late in the day. As I said, we took longer than most people to hike this mountain. And we weren't sure we could make it all the way off the mountain in one day. We'd gotten back to the refuge, the halfway point, but we weren't sure we could make it down before it got dark. But the staff at the refuge in what I think is the 4th act of kindness offered to let us stay at the refuge for free if we cooked dinner and served it with them. So if we basically just worked there with them that evening. And so we did. We worked there, we slept for free, and we woke up the next morning, day 3, to finish our hike. So we hiked out the mountain, but that's not where, but the acts of kindness are not over yet. If you look behind me, this is Jebel Toubkal. It is a stock photo of Jebel Toubkal. I do not have any photos of the actual hike and mountain because on the first day of the hike, I lost my camera. You don't expect to see your camera again when it falls off of the strap of your backpack in the middle of a hike. But much to my surprise, on that final day of hiking down, a Moroccan man came running up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, and handed me my camera back without saying anything. And then he kept running down the trail. And that is the 5th act of kindness in what was a very ill-advised 3-day hiking trip. And I've rarely felt more grateful in my life in a small span of time.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. I think we all probably owe our lives to people who helped us when we were young and stupid. And when I was in my early 20s and I was traveling, I was very lucky to be in similar situations where people really helped me out. So I think some of those are some of the best stories that you can ever tell. Are the stories for, when you're young and you're fearless, and all you need is a banana, a couple oranges, and a can of beans. So thank you for your story. That was phenomenal. I just want to do a quick update for everybody out there. As most people know, the original amount that we were trying to raise was $1,500, and we've already raised $2,640. So thank you, all of you, for your generous support. We're throwing our GoFundMe back up there again. The organization that we're trying to help is trying to give $1,000 grants to all these different restaurant workers who are out of work right now, and you are really making a big difference in a lot of people's lives tonight. So thank you for what you're doing. I know a lot of people are having a hard time right now, and I hope you are having a great night, and you've really made a lot of people very happy tonight. So thank you for all of our storytellers. We have one last storyteller coming up. Stand by.
Dan Tebo.
Dan Tebo. Dan Tebo has lived in Jamaica Plain for the Jamaica Plain area for almost 20 years. He's worked at Tres Gatos, he's worked at Vivi, and recently he's worked at the Light of Day Records in Monument Market. The Light of Day Records currently is only open for vinyl delivery. So we're gonna ask Dan or someone else if they could throw up the website. If people are looking to get some vinyl delivered, I know my record collection is getting a little stale, so I might give them a call. He is also a freelance music journalist, and he currently operates a website called the VHS of the Week, where he does critiques of movies from the 80s. I did read his critically acclaimed take on The Karate Kid Part 3 this evening. Beautiful piece of work. And I'm going to turn the...
Hold on, before you do.
Yes.
You do, voice of God stepping in here because I'm allowed to. I just have to say, first of all, Dan Tebo has an amazing mustache. So better for that. And Dan Tebo, while yes, he works at Light of Day, which at Light of Day is awesome, owned by Chris Antonowicz. Everybody should know it. Did fantastic place. You should absolutely you should check out Light of Day Records and the fact that they will deliver vinyl to your door. But I also want to mention that Dan Tebo works at one of my favorite places in the entire world, which is Vivi. So those of you who don't know about Vivi, you should. I clearly we love Tres Gatos. We love lots of places. We very much love Vivi as well. It is a small, awesome place in JP. You should know about it. You should check it out. We will put the link up there for that one. So now we'll turn it over to Dan Tebo, but I did not want to ignore the fact that he works at one of the best places in the world. Dan, you're up.
He's still muted.
Oh, you're still muted. We'll fix that. You are no longer muted, Dan.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? All right. I actually had a story. I didn't realize Tres Gatos was associated with this. So my story, strangely enough, involves working at Tres Gatos. So there's that. I'm also, unlike your other readers, going to be reading it off something that I wrote. So I apologize about that. But you know, we're just gonna let it rip. All right. So winter 2011, I am distracted driving through rush hour traffic, talking on the cell phone. On the other end of the line is my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend who lives in Astoria, Queens. Did you hear, she asks, Tres Gatos has tapas, books, and records. I perk up slightly at the mention of records, but I'm still distracted and having a hard time paying attention. In a few months, we'll break up, and she'll list my inability to pay attention as one of the reasons we're breaking up. What are you talking about, I ask. Tres Gatos? 3 cats, she says. They sell books, records, and tapas. Now, the previous summer, we were in Bar Harbor, Maine, where we went to this little breakfast cafe called 2 Cats, where unlike at 3 Cats, actual kittens are allowed to roam through the dining room. I figured she was calling to tell me that they had added a book and record store, an extra cat, if you will. I didn't bother to ask why she was suddenly speaking Spanish. My response, cool. We went on with our lives. A couple months later, I was standing in line at the CVS on Center Street when I thought I saw a mirage through the window. Across the street, there appeared to be a cozy restaurant on the first floor of an apartment building. The softly glowing lights were full of people picking at plates of jamon serrano and manchego cheese, sipping on glasses of the tinto naranja. Since it was still way too cold for mirages, I had to assume that this place was real. I lived about a mile away for the last 6 years. How did I not know there was a restaurant right up the street from my apartment? I gathered my Doritos and walked across the street where I saw the sign. Tres Gatos, tapas, books, and music store. So this is what my ex was trying to tell me about. Did they have any idea what a huge gourmand I was? Did they not know that I went out shopping for records at least twice a week since I was old enough to leave the apartment by myself? A place that combines food and wine and music and records would be a dream come true, and here it was, right in front of my face, right in my own neighborhood. I walked through the front door, took in the sights and smells, and eventually made my way back to the bookstore where I was greeted by this beardy character who was a cross between Beetlejuice and Danny Ocean from the Ocean's 11 movies. I have to give Phil credit because that's actually how he described himself to me once. Let me know if you want me to put something on, he said. And then he went outside for a smoke of some sort. I thought, this looks like the kind of guy I could get up into, get into a little bit of trouble with. I was in serious like. I know this because my Facebook status in the memory section for this actual week in 2011 says the following. Tres Gatos, I think I'm in serious like. I went there as much as possible and feasted on lamb's tongue with creamy grits and a 6-minute egg, asparagus a la brasca with romesco sauce, albondigas, glasses upon glasses of La Cartuja wine. I purchased stacks of vinyl, even though at this point I did not own a record player. At this point, I'd worked at Neptune Oyster for about 6 years and was living my best life financially. Still, I harbored a not-so-secret desire to ditch that job and work at Tres Gatos. As luck would have it, I was fired from that job about 5 minutes later, putting me on a fateful collision course with the tiny tapas bar up the street. First, though, on New Year's of 2012, I started working at Vivi, where I remain to this day, COVID-19 closure aside. I took the temperature of the neighborhood and found that it was very much like a Portlandia sketch come to life, at least before everyone got priced out. Greetings from Roslindale. As one of my Gatos co-workers put it, this entire neighborhood is like Cheers, where everybody knows your name, but they're not always glad you came. Once again, I was in serious like. After a few months at the V, my bank account was plunging toward the number 0. I figured I'd finally work up the courage to get a job at Tres Gatos. Most of my coworkers double dipped at places like the Haven or 10 Tables, one big happy restaurant family, this neighborhood. In my imagination, the job would be half waiting tables and half shooting the breeze about records. High fidelity meets My Dinner with Andre. To my delight, that's exactly what it was like to work at Tres Gatos, at least in 2012. I can't tell you how many times I was in the weeds trying to polish glasses when our benevolent owner, David Doyle, with his ever-present engineer's cap, appeared in the doorway and said, Mr. Tebo, my gut tells me you really need to stop what you're doing and come in the back and listen to this new Mountain Goats album. At least one time that happened, just once. So I worked at Tres Gatos, and I loved it. We had fun, and the fun had us right back. As summer turned into fall, however, a dark cloud began to form on the horizon. Someone spoke the words every server, bartender, line cook, host, dishwasher is loath to hear. I think we might start opening for brunch. The dream, as John Lennon once said, was over. I was the walrus, now I'm serving brunch. And listen, brunch sucks. This is something that I learned earlier that year at Vivi, where it should be noted, brunch is no longer served. My dear friend and boss, Kristen, said, hey, Tebo, I heard you said you might want to pick up some brunch shifts. Let the record show I never said such thing, but I like to be a team player. Besides, I was the Saturday lunch guy at Neptune for like 7 years. I had to be in at 10:30, open the doors at 11:30. By the last year, there were so many people in line that we would have a 3-hour wait by 11:31. If I could handle that, surely I could handle brunch, right? Wrong. I had worked at Vivi for several months at that point, but working brunch, I was particularly confused. What's all this extra furniture? Why is there syrup all over everything? Why is every customer ordering 5 different drinks? Why is everyone so angry? I've tried time and time again to explain to non-industry people the unique and terrible pain at brunches. They never seem to understand, but let me try one more time. Let's say you work at a BMW dealership selling, BMWs, and good on you if you do. You work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now let's say Friday is always the busiest day of the week. You leave the house at 8 a.m. and you don't get home till 9, dog tired. You're so zonked, you go to bed at 10 p.m. Or you go to some sketchy basement rave in Chelsea until dawn, whatever floats your boat. Now you have to get up at 4 a.m., go back to the BMW dealership, but instead of selling BMWs, you're selling 10-speed bicycles to mobs of angry 12-year-olds for a third of your regular pay. Anyway, brunch came to Tres Gatos. Not just Sunday, mind you, but Saturday as well. I done got myself signed up for both days, and the food, as expected, was incredible. Soft scrambled eggs with crispy ham, avocado toast, grilled toast, and tomato jam, chickpea pancakes, eggs Benedict with sliced duck breast and orange hollandaise. I'm gonna skip that part, whatever. Yeah, some brunch. I was also a brunch bartender, which was fine, except we didn't actually have a bar, just beer and wine only. The brunch cocktail list consisted of 2 drinks, a meow mosa and something called the ginger tabby. And I'm not sure if it was me or if it was the drink, but everybody was really allergic to the ginger tabby. The mimosa was made with freshly squeezed orange juice, squozen by yours truly. Do you have any idea how many oranges you need to die to make one mimosa? Never mind an entire glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. So you can go whomp. Why was that $6? I'm being dramatic, of course. At this point, like most of y'all, I would kill to work any shift, even brunch. And I've been back to Tres Gatos brunch many times over the years, and it's always delicious. I tried the bone marrow. Things like brunch take time to catch on, and it never really caught on while I was there. We started fully staffed up with a crew of like 5 people, and we're down to 2 by Christmas time. Often I would come in, sweep and mop the floor, and then be cut 30 minutes into the shift, earning myself the nickname, the old sweep and mop. It was busy a handful of times. We had a super fun Sharon Jones and the Dap King brunch where I got to meet Sharon Jones' bandmate's mom. But mostly it was kind of a slog. My personal life started to go sideways around the same time, and I was forced to move out of the incredible apartment I had lived in for 7 years. I was working 2 jobs and not really able to make ends meet due to some severe financial mismanagement on my own part. One Sunday in the dead of winter, I woke up at 8 a.m. after a night of medium-sized revelry, shook out the cobwebs, and tightened up my gut for a 14-hour workday. I started at Gatos, where I swept and mopped, mashed oranges till my fingers fell off, not literally. I waited on maybe half a dozen people before I got the hook around 1 in the afternoon. I went down to Vivi for a V sandwich and then drove home for about a 30-minute nap. The Vivi night shift started at 4 and the doors opened at 5:30, and in walked no one at all. I'm not sure if the Oscars were on that night, or maybe it was the Patriots, or maybe there was like a super intense episode of Breaking Bad or something, or maybe everybody called and messaged each other and said, hey, let's not go to Vivi for dinner tonight. Whatever it was, I didn't like it. I was also the closing manager, which meant I was there until the last dish was washed and put away. Out the door at 10 p.m. with less than $40 in my pocket. I swung back by Tres Gatos to collect my tips for the morning shift, which were rolled up and stapled into an envelope with my name on it. $48, pretty average haul for brunch around then. Still, $80 for roughly 11 hours worth of work and one completely disappeared Sunday. Nothing really to impress the debt collectors. I got in my car and drove over to my future girlfriend, Caitlin, current girlfriend, Caitlin, future Tres Gatos, former GAM, Caitlin's house on Sheridan Street. Parking is always scarce over there, particularly on Sunday. I drove around for a small eternity before finally scamming a spot on Forbes Street. While I was exiting my car, I slipped on some ice and fell flat on my ass. A nice little nightcap to conclude a spectacular Sunday. The following morning, we headed down to Orem for breakfast. Now, I'm probably getting the time straight, but that restaurant Orem was awesome, and those ham pies were delicious. I just want to bring that up. I reached into my pocket to pay with my brunch tips, and the envelope was gone. It must have fallen out when I slipped on the ice. I ran back down to where my car was parked, and of course, it was long gone. The money, not the car. Can you imagine? I felt sick. It wasn't the most cash I've ever lost before. I left $200 in a taxi the night the Red Sox won it all in 2004, but it was worth every penny. But still, my Sunday average dropped to something like $3.70 an hour. Flash forward to holiday season 2014. I'm still in JP working at Tres Gatos. Wait, no, I'm working at Vivi. I quit Tres Gatos, but I went back to work there again. So I'm working at both places. I'm still working at brunch, but now we have a real liquor license and real bartenders. So I don't have to bartend anymore, but I still have to sweep and mop, but I don't have to touch any oranges. I try to have a better attitude about things, and I think I do. One afternoon, a customer mentions he sent me a message on Facebook and asked if I had seen it. I tell him I haven't, and then I realize that we aren't actually Facebook friends, and he says, maybe the message went into my Facebook junk folder. I have no idea that this even exists. But when I get home, I go rooting around the back alleys of the interwebs. Sure enough, there's a folder full of spam and porn and scams and porn scams, spams, and an email from the regular I just mentioned. But then I see another email, and it reads the following. Hello, Dan. My name is Melissa Fernandez, not a real name, and I live near Sheridan Street. I found the envelope with your name on it and some cash inside and would really like to get it back to you. Please let me know how I can do so. Thank you. The email was dated like January 2013, almost 2 years ago at that point. I'm happy that 2012, whatever. I'm absolutely stunned. Why didn't I see this envelope before? I decide whether it's even worth writing back. I mean, would you hold on to $48 for 2 years? I say, hey, Melissa, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I'm just seeing this now. Thank you for reaching out. Obviously, don't worry about the money, but thank you for being so kind. Take care. She wrote back almost instantly. Dan, nice to finally hear from you. Of course, I spent the money, but I'd like to replace it. Let me know where I can find you, and I'll bring you $50, your cash plus interest. I tell her that isn't necessary, but she insists. We'll say it's in the spirit of the holidays, she says. I tell her I can still be found at Tres Gatos, and that my shift starts at 4 this afternoon. This is for adults, right? I can say shit. I tell all my coworkers that would happen as soon as I arrive. I want to buy this Melissa a drink or a cup of coffee, or really whatever she wants. I head back to clean the record store bathroom, and somebody yells back that she's already there. I rush out, and there's just an envelope on the bar. It says, Dear Dan, believe in miracles. Thank you. I rush outside, run down the steps, and look both ways up and down Center Street, but it's like she's vanished in the thin air. So almost 2 years later, my 2012 brunch shift was no longer worked in vain. So Melissa, whoever and wherever you are excellent people, and I cannot thank you enough. The end.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you, Mail. Thank you, everyone tonight who has told a story. I
Great
give
story.
everyone a full breakdown of how much we've raised so far. We've raised $2,890 just hanging out, listening to stories.
Probably for your story.
What's that?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. We just want to thank everyone for being so generous tonight, and we hope we made people's nights a little brighter. We hope people enjoyed themselves tonight, and hopefully this is the first of many nights like this. We hope you'll join us again, and we're thinking about you. We're thinking about your families, and we love you all. Take care.
Here, here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.